Okay, I think most of you are in. I'll make sure to monitor to see if I need to let anyone else in. But welcome, thank you all for joining us today. Today's webinar is titled Taking the Next Steps to Advance Your Career, the Whys and How-Tos of Graduate School or Postdocs. I am Iris Wagstaff, and I am a STEM Program Director at AAAS, and I'm also the EARN Conference Program Lead. The EARN Conference is hosting this webinar today, and we're so thrilled to have our speaker for the final time in this series. So you are all are very lucky and fortunate to have joined us today for this last session. Next slide, please. So now just a little bit about AAAS and the American Association for the Advancement of Science, in case you are not familiar with AAAS, but it is the largest and oldest general scientific organization in the world. We were founded in the 1800s, and the mission is simple but large, and that is to advance science, engineering, and innovation throughout the world for the benefit of all people. Most people know us through our science magazine, but we actually have a family of science journals. So make sure to check out those other journals if you are interested in those other publications. So we accomplished this huge mission through a variety of projects, programs, and initiatives. Throughout AAAS, we have a heavy focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The EARN Conference is one of those efforts. But to learn more about our projects, programs, and initiatives, as well as some of our own fellowship opportunities and professional development opportunities for students, definitely check out our website at AAAS.org. And then definitely feel free to check out our science career website resources at www.sciencejobs.org. So a little bit about the EARN Conference, if you have never attended the EARN Conference before. So the Emerging Researchers National Conference in STEM, or EARN as we call it, is funded by the National Science Foundation's HBCU UP program, which stands for HBCU Universities Program. And the goals and objectives are to prepare a diverse cadre of students for global careers in STEM, and to help students really hone their science communication skills. During the conference, we have several activities. We have anywhere from 600 to 800 oral and poster presentations by undergraduate and graduate student STEM researchers. We also have anywhere from 20 to 30 professional development workshops for students as well as faculty. We have an education and career fair where students can learn about a number of opportunities that include internships, preparing for graduate school, postdocs, research opportunities, as well as employment opportunities. And we have 4 amazing plenaries with some STEM luminaries in the world of science. The conference for this year was canceled, unfortunately, due to the COVID pandemic, but we are already planning for next year. We typically hold the conference in February during the year, but we are looking at dates from February through April, and we're hoping to have a date identified by June of this year. And we plan to open general registration as well as our call for student travel award applications and our call for student abstracts for oral and poster presentations by mid to late August. So definitely make sure to check back at our emergingresearchers.org website for information late August. So I just want to acknowledge our team. In addition to myself, we have Neela White, who is a project director on our EARN team. We also have Allison Gonzalez, who is a senior program associate, and our external evaluator, Gabby Haynes. So now I will hand it off to our amazing speaker for today. She has supported EARN from the very beginning. So over, more than 10 years, she actually is the presenter for our presentation webinars on how to give an excellent oral and poster presentation and how to prepare excellent abstracts for both oral and poster presentations. But I'm thrilled to announce her for this last series, Dr. Marianne Leong. She's the director of Sustainable Horizons Institute, and I will hand it off to her now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Iris. I'm delighted to be here. Always, I love ERN, and I'm so excited that I did actually attend the very first conference, and I went to all of them. So it's a real honor for me to be part of this webinar series. Yeah, so really excited to be here and to go to the conference next year when it's going to be in person. That will be a really exciting time. So without further ado, I will go ahead and get started. But before we do that, I'll just go over a couple administrative items for everybody. And that is, of course, first of all, the webinar is scheduled for 60 minutes, and that includes time for questions and answers. And I am the kind of person who I love to take the questions throughout the thing, so you do not have to wait till the end. Please feel free to interrupt me. You can just, ask a question verbally, or you can put something in the chat, and yeah, and we'll have this. This is designed to be very interactive, and also it's for you. So I know this stuff, so I'm here to help you guys out. So please just let me know how we can do that. So to give you a little background about me and why I'm presenting this webinar, so I am actually very similar to Iris. My training is in chemistry, although I was a computational chemist. And as part of my graduate career, I was lucky to have received a fellowship called that was funded through the Department of Energy, called the Computational Science Graduate Fellowship Program. So I was a fellow in that program, and then later on I was asked as an alum to go back and serve as the program manager. So I also ran that program. I have been lucky to be an invited speaker at the National Academy's Fellowship Roundtable, which is an organization filled with people who are running fellowship programs all across the country. As Iris said, I'm working at a nonprofit organization that is dedicated towards workforce development through the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion. I also do some work. I was on a congressionally mandated study for the National Academies that we were studying the NASA University Leadership Initiative. So I have been living kind of in this world that we're going to talk about here in terms of like, why should I go to grad school or do a postdoc, and happy to share whatever tidbits I can with you along the way. So kind of starting off in this, instead of jumping into all the kind of nuts and bolts of this, I thought it would be good for us to think a little bit about kind of, when you're thinking about whether or not you should continue on to grad school or take a postdoc, I think the most important thing to do is to first think about, like, where are you trying to go in your life? I know maybe you don't really quite know that. Some of you are probably like have a plan and have it all figured out, and others might be kind of more winging it as you go. But hopefully, I think it's worthwhile to take a little bit of a moment to think about where you're trying to go and then we'll talk about kind of what that pathway could look like. So we'll do that. I'm going to start out with a few questions so we kind of get to know each other a little bit before we dive into the details. But then we'll talk about kind of why should you consider attending grad school or doing a postdoc, and then assuming that kind of does make sense for you, how to find the right program or organization to do your work with, and then how to navigate that process, and then how to prepare yourself to be successful. So I would like to start with some what I call starter questions. And so I'm going to stop my share for just a minute, and I'm going to share with you a URL. So I'm going to ask you to go to this URL, the one that was on the screen, but I'm going to put it in the chat as well. And that's so that you can access a tool that I use called Poll Everywhere. And that tool allows us to do an interactive poll. So it's pretty neat tool. Let me see if I can get my Zoom settings all back. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so the poll is open. So look, yes, I see someone has already answered it. And you can see hopefully on the screen the dynamic real-time, results of the poll. So you just go to the website. You can also text if you prefer, and then just select what your current status is. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out who's out there and what level you're at. So it looks like so far see, it jumps around a lot. I love this because it's very dynamic and we see where things are going. So we have some undergraduates and some doctoral students, and then also some staff as well. So, okay, good. All right, keep going. I'm just going to give you a minute to log on to the poll. You can go to the website or you can use text. You sign into the poll and then you just respond with your answer to the poll. So just let us know what your current status is: undergraduate, master's, doctoral, postdoc, faculty, staff. Okay, good. Looks like we've stabilized here on this question, and most of you are, half of you are doctoral students, and quite a few undergraduates and a few staff. Okay, so that's super helpful to know. So it looks like we'll have people who are interested in all the content. I think what we have to present here will be useful for all of the people in different statuses. So. Okay, look, see, now we got some more. Now we're even on undergraduates and doctoral. Nope, now we're switching again. All right. Okay, very good. All right, so I'm going to go on to the next question. And this is a multiple choice, not a multiple choice, this is a text answer. So you can just type in some text and it will show up on the screen. I'm just curious, what has made you happy lately? Is there anything in particular, All right. Family is a really nice thing that makes lots of people happy. Definitely with me. Time. Maybe that's time with family. Adults, spending. TV, friends, pets. Good. All right. Very nice. Family still seems to be winning out. Time with friends is very popular. I see that, and that would be great. Cats. I actually have cats as well, so I'll tell you, they make me happy every day. It's really interesting how that works. Very nice. Gifts. Car. All right. A boyfriend is good. Brunch. Oh, I love brunch. I don't know about you. That's my favorite meal for sure. Okay, great. Well, I'm so happy that you guys have been finding things to make you happy, and thank you for sharing them with us. Very good. All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next question. And that is, what have you learned since the pandemic? We're, we're over 2 years into this, and hopefully you've learned something, maybe about yourself or about the world or about anything. So very good. Patience and mental health are definitely important things to learn. And yeah, so structure is another good thing. Yoga is wonderful. I'm glad that people are making good use of the time. I know it's not necessarily been easy, but I do believe that are lots of things to learn in this situation. And I think in the end, we'll all come out better. That we will find a better new normal, which is pretty exciting. Love. Oh, wow. Someone found love. How lucky. Understanding. Yeah. Patience. Unity. Oh, I like that. Patience is getting popular, right? So this is a word cloud. So the more times the word is used, the larger the word gets. And yeah, so this is really nice. health, touch, self-care is a great thing to learn, and unity and patience and love. So perseverance, I like that very much. Very, very nice. Talking is really good too. All right, thank you so much for sharing with us what you have learned so far, and keep on learning. So let's see, I think I have another poll question here is, what are your career plans? So do you think you're going to get an industry job, get a academic tenure track position, an academic research position, work at a government research lab, teach in your field, or just do something else? You know, maybe you don't know for sure, but you know, whatever ideas you have now, I think is kind of useful. So it's nice to have an idea, and I don't know, I think we can all share some. It's great to have, I know in my case, I'm a planner, so I make a lot of plans and have ideas, and sometimes I end up somewhere different. and it's usually for a really good reason, and I'm happier about that. But it's nice to get a sense of where you're going, because I think that will help the discussion that we have here today. So yeah, so mostly it looks like we are looking towards a lot of people are looking to get a job in industry, which is a great path. You can have a really nice career that way. So we do have some interested in pretty much everything. So, but industry seems to be quite popular. Okay, so I believe that is that is the last question for now. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my slides, and let's see. Go. Yeah, okay. And let me fix my settings. All right. Okay, so so now we can start talking about the why you want to continue your education or training. And so the first, let's see, there we go. The first thing that you want to try to think about is what you want to do. And you may or may not already have an image of that. And hopefully you'll be able to help figure out how to get that. And if not, you know, how can you try to figure it out? So what can you do with a STEM degree? So ERN, and presumably people out there, you could be from any different fields, from astrophysics to zoology and everything in between. So what can you do with your degree? So of course, you could be a zoologist, someone who's studying that field, a wildlife biologist, microbiologist. So I don't know how I got a lot of biology on my head, even though I'm a chemist. There we go, network or computer systems administrator, something quite different. Computer networks architect, health and safety engineers, industrial engineers, electrical and electronics technicians, laboratory technicians. Those are all different things that you could do with a STEM degree, right? So there's all different kinds of types of work that you could do, and in different areas. And then another thing you might want to think about is, what type of work do you want to do? So not just like, you know, those are kind of titles, but what sort of work do you want to do? And what I mean there is, like, you want to lead something or be in charge of a team or a project or whatnot? Do you want to design the work, or are you more interested in just contributing to a team? And do you want to conduct research? Do you want to teach? Is also another great thing that you can do with a STEM degree. Or are you really more interested in this discovery process? So STEM is really, in a lot of cases, about discovery and design. Is that what's really interested to you? Or are you interested in writing? Maybe you're a really good writer and you can write technical things, or you can write for a general audience, AAAS is, of course, a wonderful example of great writing, not just in their scientific publications, but lots of other great stories that come out of AAAS. Maybe you want to affect change. You want to make the world better in some way or another. So these are all different types of work that you could do with your STEM degree in the various areas that we talked about previously. And I think getting a sense of who you are yourself and what you enjoy doing will also help you in this question that we're talking about today about what you want to do and what other training or education you might want to pursue. Maybe you want to help others. You know, I work in a nonprofit myself, and so that is something that is really important to me, is to be able to help others as well as to affect change. So I certainly eventually found my way to the right place for me. I was very pleased for that. Question? Okay. So the other thing to consider is the type of environment that you want to work in. And that ranges from like just your basic schedule and your hours. So whether you want to have fixed and regular hours or more of a flexible, you know, like schedule that you get to kind of set yourself, and how much work-life balance you want to have. And again, whether you want to be part of a team or you want to work more independently, the very traditional kind of model for a scientist is to be, you know, the individual investigator, go off and, you know, research and publish and whatnot. But maybe you're more interested in being a team or being a leader, leading other people through projects. The size of the organization you want to work in is also something that can help you along your path and figuring out which direction you want to go in and how entrepreneurial you want to be, whether you want to be the person like coming up with ideas and creating this company or whatnot. Those are all things that I think are important to think about because they help direct where you want to go. So for example, everything is like depends on the particular situation, but generally speaking, you know, in industry, you're more likely to have kind of a fixed regular schedule, whereas in academia, you're more likely to have much more flexibility with your schedule. You have to keep classes so many times a week, but then other than that, you know, besides meetings and things, you have a lot of flexibility on what you want to do. So these are the kinds of things that can help you, like small or large organizations. Large organizations tend to have you know, more resources, more opportunities, but they also tend to be more bureaucratic. So small organizations have an opportunity for you to do a lot of different things, where in larger organizations, you tend to specialize a lot more. So these are all things that I think are useful and helpful to think about in terms of thinking about your future. And then the other thing that is also helpful, which sometimes it takes a while to figure this out, but you know, what sector do you want to work in? Are you looking towards going to academia? Are you interested in government, working in nonprofit, or working for-profits within the in industry? And those are also things, because the work environments and the requirements will vary based on the sector and the type of work that you want to do. And the other kind of really important thing as well is kind of what are your values and what's important to you? So what are you like, want to make a lot of money? There's nothing wrong with that. And if you do, there's probably some paths which will lead you to that closer and faster than other paths. Whereas maybe you're more interested in being independent or having a lot of prestige, you know, discovering things, having very challenging work, or having a work-life balance, because family is very important. We saw that earlier, that what made people happy recently was family. So maybe being able to be in a situation where you have a lot of work-life balance is really important. And that can dictate, oh, well, I, you know, do some research and you find out this particular pathway will lead you towards that more than another. And then that will tell you how much education, continued education and training you may or may not need. So in terms of trying to figure that out, in terms of your education and training, here's a few things that kind of you might want to take into consideration. What are your future goals? And that will really dictate how much education and training that you should need. So different positions require different kinds of degrees. So if you're interested in being like a laboratory technician, then you're fine with bachelor's or master's degree. You know, you don't have to have a PhD to do that. You may want to do a PhD just because it's a really wonderful process, but it may not be necessary. If you want to lead, be a principal investigator and lead research, then you almost certainly have to have a PhD. There's always some exceptions, but for the large percentage of the time, you will need a PhD. And I remember when I was a young student a while ago, someone had mentioned to me, described it in a way which I really thought made a lot of sense, that a PhD is like your union card when it comes to doing research. It is just your license to do the work. And so you really have to have it. And I would just share that my experience is that I think it's a lot more than a union card, because it's a really wonderful process to go through. Sure, it's a lot of work and you have to jump a lot of hoops, but the process in and of itself is something that's really amazing. And I was told, and I certainly agree, that when you're in a PhD program, it's really kind of a highlight of your career in some ways, because you're free to just focus on the science and to discover, and you don't have a lot of other responsibilities. It's a great time to enjoy that. The other thing that I'll point out is that the requirements will vary by field as well. So for instance, in biology, in many of the biological fields, not only are you required to have a PhD to go into a research related position, but then you may also have to have multiple postdocs. Whereas in computer science, you can most certainly get a really great job in computer science with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, and you know, also with a PhD. And very rarely do people do postdocs when you're going into computer science. They do happen, but it's certainly not the norm. Not like in some fields, like in biology, as I understand, you know, people just won't even consider you a viable candidate unless you have multiple postdocs. So before we move on, I'm going to just pause for a minute and see if anybody has any questions that they want to ask. And I'm going to look through the chat to make sure that there's nothing in there. So if you have any questions so far, please feel free to unmute and ask them or put them in the chat. Nothing coming in. Okay, so I will go ahead and I'm going to go back to the poll and ask a few questions about myths and facts and see where we are. So let's answer the next question. So here is a question for people. I should complete a master's degree before I apply for a doctoral program. Is this true or false? Just take a guess. We'll just chat about this. Is just a way for us to kind of try to go through and get some questions, you know, some perspectives, and have a discussion about this. Okay, so some people think it's false, some people think it's true. All right, more are coming through on the true side. Oh, now we're split. Okay, thank you for answering. True or false? You think it's important that you have to get a master's degree before completing a doctoral or before applying for a doctoral program? All right. Okay. All right, so now it looks like we've stabilized on our answers, and more people think it's true than not true. And I would say that typically it's that again, it depends on the field, but typically you actually do not need to have a master's program. And in some fields, it's even really quite uncommon to do a master's. So I'm a chemist, and in chemistry, actually there are very few programs that have terminal master's programs. People get master's degree along the ways to a PhD, but they don't usually apply directly just to get a master's degree. I know this does vary quite a lot in different fields, but it's an important question to think about as you're thinking about continuing your education. And sometimes I know, I'm a first generation scholar, so I didn't have anyone ahead of me like telling me what kind of degrees I had to take and which way to go. And so I have no ideas. And I was lucky. I had a mentor who let me know that no, you do not have to get a master's degree first. Because initially I thought, well, I have to get a bachelor's and then a master's and then a PhD. And it's not true. I didn't need to do a master's, so I didn't. I just matriculated directly into a PhD program. Now I got a master's along the way, because as soon as I finished certain requirements, they said, oh, well, you can apply and get a master's degree. So I did that, but it's not always the case. And I would say in many cases, it's not needed. And so, if you're don't want to waste your time and money on it, then you can skip it. The other important aspect about this is typically it's easier to get funding for a doctoral program than a master's program. So that's another thing that is important as well. So I will go on to the next question. So here's one. Graduate school is expensive. Do you think this is true or false? Graduate school is expensive. Let's say expensive for you as a student. Let me clarify that. So expensive for you as a student going into grad school. You think that's expensive? I can't tell with this system how many people have responded. So, so if I don't know if it's just one person who said true or everyone is saying true. And I don't want to qualify this as like I'm asking a lot of trick questions, but in one sense, graduate school is expensive. But however, the other sense is that to follow up on what I was saying before, typically you can get funding to so that you don't have to pay for it yourself. So as compared to medical school, where it's very uncommon for someone there's a few fellowships available to pay for medical school, but most people who attend medical school, they have to pay it themselves. They have to take out loans and whatnot. But for graduate school, especially again for PhD programs, typically you can get funded. So there's fellowships that you can apply for, and there's another webinar that I gave recently about fellowships, and then there's a follow-on webinar that's coming up that I'll tell you about where you can learn about fellowships. But there's ways to get money for graduate school, either through fellowships or even just if you don't get a fellowship through the school and through your advisor. So your advisor typically has research grants, and so they can pay you, pay for your tuition. They can also give you a living stipend so that you have living expenses as well. So you can, you don't have to work. So you can spend your whole time focused on graduate school. So, okay, good. So then let's go on to the next question. A postdoctoral position can lead to permanent positions elsewhere or at the same institution. So when you get a postdoc, do you think that's going to lead to another position at your institute, at the same institution where you are, or somewhere else? Can it just lead to another position? Okay. this one I got some more people got some ideas, which is good. So a lot of people, so not quite a 50-50 of true and false. And I would say that, you know, if you plan your strategy correctly, it'll be true, right? So if you pick the right postdoc and the right postdoc advisor, it should very much lead to a permanent position. And that could be, again, at the same institution or another. And that might be something as part of your strategy, as in terms of when you start thinking about whether you are going to do it and where you're going to do it. I happen to know, so my background is a lot with the Department of Energy National Labs, so that's my reference point. I know that there are certain laboratories where it's not guaranteed by any means, but if you get a postdoc position, they have paths already set up if you want to have a permanent position. And you talk to them at the very, you know, in the very beginning. Yes, you could take a postdoc, let's say at a national lab, and they could say, well, what is your plans? Well, I want to go get an academic job. Okay, fine, then we'll put you on a path this way. So we do everything to help you prepare for that. Or you can say, oh, no, I want to work at the national lab. I want a permanent position. I want to create a career here. Okay, then we'll help you that way as well. So I think kind of being, you know, thinking about for yourself, and then being using that information as you do your search, and talking with people where you're potentially going to work is really important. And this actually also applies to graduate school. I said postdocs here, but it should be the same thing for grad school, because I know there's a lot of undergrads out there who might be thinking about going to grad school. The same thing applies. If you get into a graduate school, you want to be thinking about where is your next position going to be after that, and how is this school and advisor going to help you to get there. So here is the next question. My advisor will place me into the best postdoctoral position. True or false? Whether this is, you know, so then this is, you know, kind of this, it could apply for you if you're a graduate student or a postdoc, maybe the next postdoc that you want to take. You think this is true? Should you rely on your advisor to get you where you want to go? Here we go. Let people kind of ponder that question. All right. Okay, it's fun to watch the answers change from one way to another. True or false? All right, so it looks like we're stabilized. Again, we're kind of in the middle with a little more people thinking it's true. And I would say you're lucky if that is the case. And it certainly was the model. The traditional model is more of a model of, you know, your advisor is, you know, it's almost, they describe it as academic lineage, right? So my advisor was this person, and so they have these connections and they connect me. So then of course I do a postdoc here, or I end up with a job there. That is the very traditional model that the advisor really shepherds you through. I think as time has passed, that model has changed a bit. I think you're really lucky if you do get an advisor that's like that. That's not always the case, and especially it depends on where you want to go. If you have an academic advisor and you're you know, you're still in school and you want to go to industry, that advisor may or may not have any connections in industry, right? Or you want to go work at a government lab, they may or may not have those connections. So it's important to kind of think about that as well as you're going along. But they might have super great connections. So what is the take-home message is thinking about these things, and when you're picking your advisor is helpful. All right, so here's another one. The institution is the most important thing to consider for graduate school or a postdoc. So is it like super important for me to go to the most prestigious university or the most prestigious research institution? Is that the most important thing if possible? So, okay, look, so we've got 60-40 here on true and false in terms of the institution being the most important thing to consider. And yeah, interesting. And I would say that actually it depends on that path that we talked about earlier. Where are you headed? And that will tell you whether or not it's really important. If you want to be a tenure track professor at a R1 institution, then I would say absolutely that institution is going to be really important. They're going to look at your CV and your pedigree and all that sort of stuff. And those things are going to be important. If you want to do something else, maybe it won't be so important. And in any case, I think that it's really important for you to make sure that you get a good fit, because you want to have a really good experience where you go. You could be at the best institution as possible, and if you have a terrible experience, maybe you won't get through your program, and that will not be good in the end either. So it's something to really think about in terms of your goals and what it takes to get there. All right, I think this is our last question. Your relationship with your advisor or your mentor is the most important thing to consider. So when you're applying to graduate school, you'll have an advisor who will advise you through your thesis, whether it's a master's or a PhD. And if you take a postdoc, you're going to have someone who's going to be your advisor, kind of because you're still in a training position. Is that advisor the most important thing to consider? So far, we have no, everyone is in agreement. Again, I can't tell how many people have responded, but people will give you different answers to this question. But in my case, this was the advice I got, and I actually stand by it. It is absolutely the most important thing to consider, with the caveat of depending on all these other things that we talked about. But you're going to have a really important relationship with your advisor, whether it's in a postdoc or graduate school. And so you want to make sure that that's a really good experience, and that you get along on a lot of different levels. And so I think it's very important to consider your advisor when you're picking these areas. So that is the end of the questions. I'm going to go back to my slides. And again, I'm happy to take any questions from anyone as we go. And let's see, there we go. Okay. So in terms of finding the right program and mentor, sorry, my screen, sometimes when I try to share my screen on Zoom, I don't know what happens. It does this crazy thing. There we go. All right, it's back. So, so how do you go about trying to find the right program and the right mentor? Here's just a few things that you can try to consider. First of all, who's doing work that you're interested in? Because no matter what it is, whether it's a postdoc or a master's or a PhD, you're going to be entrenched in doing some particular research work. And you want to be motivated by that and excited about that. So that's one of the things that I think is really super important to think about. How important is the prestige of that institution for your future? So for grad students, I think it's also really important to think about the program requirements. Believe it or not, they vary widely from institution to institution. How many kind of hoops do you have to jump through? Are there cumulative exams or qualifying exams or general exams? And are they going to waive your tuition? All of these different things that affect your experience. And then, of course, hopefully you get invited to go visit the school, and it's really important to talk to people and find out about what it's really like there, talk to other graduate students and see if they're happy or not, and where their alumni have gone. In terms of your potential advisor, which I mentioned is, I consider a really important relationship. You want to be compatible, not just intellectually, but also just from a personality style and a work style, because you're going to spend a lot of probably intense time working together. So you want to make sure that you get along. I'm sad to say I have plenty of stories I could tell you about students that I know who did not, like picked an advisor because this person was the famous person in this field, and turned out the person was they just were not compatible. They didn't work well together, so they dropped out, or, and some people have developed health problems because it's so stressful. It's just really terrible. So it is very important to take that into consideration. And in terms of actually finding someone, once you kind of get a general idea, I suggest, do use your network, use your current advisor. Maybe they can help you figure out who would be interesting to you and help you by making introductions. Look for papers, authors of papers of interest, go to conferences and meetings, meet people, do a lot of internet searching to figure out who's doing things that are interest of you. And don't be shy. I was always a very shy person, but I learned that you have to just put it out there, and you can just write to someone and just say, hey, I think your work is really interesting, and I would like to maybe talk to you about a postdoc or being a grad student or something like that. I think that's very important, and there's informational interviews are extremely valuable for that. In terms of navigating the process, there's certainly, of course, if you're applying to grad school, there's going to be, filling out the application and contacting your references and visiting schools and meeting the other graduate students. Be sure and talk to them and find out what it's like, and then you have to go through the negotiating an offer part, which is something that a lot of people don't know about, but it really is a negotiation process. You don't have to just take whatever they offer you. So if they're giving you an offer, it means clearly that they are interested in you. From the postdoc perspective, it's probably similar. It's very common now to have to go through a telephone or a Zoom interview first, as a first kind of screening method, and then you will probably have to have an in-person interview where you give a research talk and you meet with your potential collaborators and workers. There will probably be social meetings where they're over meals, and I'll say that that can be a very grueling process because it could be a day or 2-day visit and lots of back-to-back meetings. Don't forget to drink water and give yourself breaks and things like that. And of course, practice so that your talk goes really well, and be prepared to talk with a lot of different people. I know myself, I always get a list of who I'm meeting with so I can get do a little research on them so I have something to talk to them about. And then the other thing that I want to mention, which is important, is that you have to remember that you are interviewing them to see if it's a good fit for you, and will you be happy there. It's really important for you to ask questions, for one, because it shows that your initiative and you've done your homework, but also so that you get to understand whether that's going to be a good fit for you. So the application process, of course, there's application forms and transcripts, and GRE scores are typically required for graduate school, and then writing essays in terms of your proposed research, your motivation, and getting your reference letters, and making sure all your materials are in time, of course, is really super important. Then in terms of how to be successful, what I would say is that there may be lots of people who apply. And so how are you going to make yourself stand out? And I think the most important thing is to create a compelling story about yourself and your potential. And that story will be evidenced through your essays, your application, and whatnot. In your essays, you want to, of course, talk about your excitement for research and your the kind of interesting research that you like to do. Your experience, your extracurricular activities are always bonus points here. And your recommendation letters, of course, will be extremely important. And I have another slide coming up to talk about recommendation letters. But yeah, so those are all really important things. And they're things that if you're even like in the early stages, I don't know like how soon you might be considering this. If you're in the early stages, it's important to keep these things in mind so you start building your CV and you have these things as part of your record. So you have a stellar application when you apply. So here are a couple of resources that I wanted to share with you that are from colleagues of mine. The first one is an article in the SIAM, is the Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics. So there was a professor named David Keyes, who's quite famous in my field. He has written a really nice article about what's called the art of procuring reference letters. And it talks about, really, it's not so much about reference letters, it's about building relationships with people who will write you reference letters, because that's really important. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that is often made, is that you think of people as just how transactional and how, how you're going to use them to help you. But really what you need to think about is building relationships with people which will then result in people writing letters that are going to stand out. Rebecca Brannon has developed a number of resources which are really helpful. There's this one called Keeping About Me Notes, which is, just making notes about yourself so that you can use those as you're developing your applications. And so that's kind of like tips for building a resume for an application. She also talks about requesting a letter of recommendation. Hers is more tactical, and it kind of talks about how to do it and how to make it easy for the letter writer, because you should remember that the letter writers often are asked by multiple people to write letters, and so you want to make it easy for them. They're also super, super busy. And then she has a student guide for preparing your PhD proposal, which again could be used for writing a proposal for a postdoc program or a postdoc fellowship or something like that. All right, so one thing that I want to mention is that I had said earlier that there's some upcoming webinars which are going to be really helpful and useful for you. IRIS has organized a panel of fellowship providers from a variety of different institutions. I know she's still working on, pinning down exactly who will be there, but potentially any of the institutions that are listed here. There will be a webinar on May 4th at 1:30 to 3 o'clock Eastern, and another one on May 18th. And I highly recommend that you consider going to this. This will be a panel of people who are at agencies that provide fellowships. So you get it right from the horse's mouth. And whatnot. So that is a related thing. So I will pause and see if there's any questions. You feel free to put it in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask. Anyone have any questions or feedback? I hope this was helpful.
Feel free to unmute yourself if you would like, or put your questions in the chat. And I also dropped the survey link before you leave. In case you don't have questions, please make sure to complete the survey. We'll also send that via email after the webinar, but feel free to ask any questions you might have. So when do you apply for fellowships? Do you apply the same time as applying for grad school?
That is a great question. So it kind of depends on the fellowship, but typically the application deadlines are around the same time. So that's good news and bad news, right? Because you know, when you're searching for grad school programs to apply for, you can search for fellowships as well. But of course, then it means that a lot of times the deadlines are at the same time. So yeah, I would say we did do a webinar that was strictly on fellowships, and those that recording and the slides are available. So feel free to peruse those. We have completed them, so there won't be another one coming up. But yeah, so I would say, you know, do the research, figure out which ones make the most sense for you, apply to both. I think it's highly recommended to apply for grad school and fellowships at the same time, because if you you know, if you get your fellowship, then all of a sudden grad school doors are going to open up to you, because they don't have to pay for you, because you have payment, you know, you have your own funding. So it makes you even a stronger candidate for grad schools. And you can absolutely apply for fellowships before you know what grad school you're going to. That was a great question.
Very good question. I definitely agree. Cast a wide net, apply for multiple opportunities. I'm very big on having backups, B and C and D to plans, because you never know, you know, what you're going to get and what's out there. So the links that I dropped in the chat. So the NSF GRFP is the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. If you're interested, it's a great opportunity to fund graduate school. You get about $45,000 in support. And that deadline is typically in November of every year. And then 2 of our AAAS opportunities, since about half of you are undergrad and about half of you are doctoral students. Definitely check out our Science and Technology Policy Fellowship program. I am a fellow alum from that program. You have to have either completed your PhD or defended by the deadline, which is November 1st. That application will open up May 1st. And then also for the women in the audience, we have our L'Oreal for Women in Science Fellowship Program, which is an awesome program. You have to be a current postdoc at that time, but we will be opening that back up in December of this year. So even if you're not ready right now, definitely keep these options on your radar.
Definitely. More questions from anyone? Those are all really great programs, that's for sure. Okay, I see a question. How soon do we reach out and start communicating to potential grad school advisors? If you're planning to start in fall of 2023, I would say it's never too early. I mean, if you've identified someone who you think you're interested in working with, reach out to them. And, you know, the sooner the better, because maybe you'll find out you're both going to be at a conference, or that person is going to be in your area, and you can chat and learn more about each other and figure out whether or not it will make sense to work together. So I would say no time too soon. So I encourage you to go ahead and start that process. Thanks for the question. That was a good one.
What? I'm sorry. Did you see? What about gift cards? Sorry, did we miss that one?
Yeah, so I was looking at that question. I don't quite understand.
Could you explain, Lucretia? Lucretia, could you explain your question? What about gift cards? Okay. Maybe Lucretia stepped out, but are there any other questions from the audience? If not, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. And again, thank Dr. Leland for being with us today. Our final time, we will miss her. We will miss her, but you can definitely go to our website to check out the slides and recordings. Definitely, please take a few minutes to complete the survey. For more information about the EARN conference, you can visit our website, emergingresearchers.org, and also please follow us on social media. We have a LinkedIn and a Twitter account where we share, webinars like this, other resources, other opportunities to really support students in their educational and career pathways. So if there are no remaining questions, thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck in your search and your careers.